Meanwhile in Hollywood, news reports of Kenny's Antipodean nursing adventures had caught the attention of Mary McCarthy. Mary was a young screenwriter with a sharp instinct for a story that would work on the big screen. She conceived the idea for a feature film of Kenny's life and introduced her to the Hollywood actress Rosalind Russell, who later became the sponsor and star of the film. Mary and sister became close and affectionate friends. For 2 years, they worked together on the film script and socialised together in Hollywood. And Mary's home in Los Angeles became Kenny's home away from home. For Mary, a lesbian, the bond was deeply personal. But Kenny proved to be a fair-weather friend to McCarthy. Their affectionate friendship ended abruptly after Mary had a breakdown after splitting up with her girlfriend. The movie studios tolerated gays and lesbians if they stayed invisible, but were ruthless with anyone who broke the unwritten code of silence. Mary was sacked as the writer of the film and disowned by Kenny. The film Sister Kenny, starring Rosalind Russell, was largely Mary's inspiration, but the RKO studio erased her name from the credits. For Mary, Kenny's rejection was heartbreaking. She had given years of loyalty and perhaps love. In return, she was betrayed and discarded. Despite the cruelty of Kenny's rejection, Mary remained loyal to her friend. Years after Kenny's death, Mary was asked why Kenny had lied about her relationships with men. She replied, "Because she's no different from any other human being. They like their fictional life better than the real one and start to embellish it." The film Sister Kenny was eventually released in 1946. The plot for the first half of the film follows the now familiar story of her youth that was presented in her memoir. But oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. As well as heroically rescuing children from the jaws of polio, the film portrays Kenny's heartbreaking decision to forsake married happiness and devote her life to the care of children. After Kenny's death, the co-author of the memoir confirmed the romance had been created to make the book more interesting. The romance may have been fictitious, but Kenny's dishonesty was real. In the lead-up to the release of the film, she broke down in tears in front of her adopted daughter and her work colleagues after receiving a telegram from Australia announcing the death of her one true love. A copy of the telegram was found in her personal papers after her death. It was a studio prop designed to promote interest in the forthcoming film. Her display of grief was completely fake, and a grim reminder of her desperation to conceal the true reasons for her rejection of marriage as a young woman. By the mid-1940s, Sister Kenny was a household name in America. Parents adored her, newspapers chased her, clinics bore her name. She had done what no one thought possible, turned herself into the face of the fight against polio. But behind the scenes, Basil O'Connor had reached the end of his patience with her Take No Prisoners fight with the National Foundation. In March 1945, he struck back. He demanded an audit of her living expenses since her arrival in America. The results were damning. Between 1940 and 1945, she had received close to $50,000 in personal expenses, the equivalent of about 15 years of wages for a typical white family in 1940s America. For a woman who insisted she never took a dime for her work, the revelation cut deep. It didn't matter that much of it went on travel costs. The numbers told their own story, and O'Connor knew it. 1946 was the pinnacle of Kenny's career in America. It was also the beginning of her downfall. Her public popularity continued to grow, but she probably didn't recognize the event that sealed her fate and changed America's war against polio: the appointment of Harry Weaver as Director of Research for the National Foundation. Weaver's appointment brought a renewed focus to the primary goal of the Foundation's research program: creating a vaccine. Scientists knew a vaccine was possible, but they lacked basic knowledge of the virus and its transmission. Weaver used his administrative and organisational skills to make more effective use of the Foundation's enormous research budget. O'Connor backed him fully. The future wasn't rehabilitation. The future was eradication. Kenny's biggest mistake in America was not knowing when to stop. By 1944, her methods were embedded in mainstream medical care across the nation. Movement, exercise, and rehabilitation had replaced the rigid immobilization of the past. In a sense, she had won, but she wanted more. More credit, more control, more resources. Every angry battle with her detractors chipped away at her support. She had modernized the rehabilitation of polio patients. The American public adored her for that achievement, but the science was moving on without her. And time was not on her side. Her health faltered as her Parkinson's disease worsened. Her face became rigid, her hands trembled, and her gait became stiff and slow. Still, she refused to fade quietly. She put on a brave face, smiled for the cameras, and carried herself like a fighter to the end. By 1948, her influence within the Elizabeth Kenny Institute had dwindled. O'Connor had cut off crucial funding. Her allies melted away. In 1949, she admitted defeat and resigned as a director of the Kenny Foundation. Even as her health collapsed, the final 18 months of her life were astonishing. She travelled to Europe on the Queen Mary, first class, and racked up more air miles crossing the Pacific than many world leaders in a time when flying was still a luxury only the wealthiest could afford. In August 1951, frail and unsteady, she flew to Copenhagen to attend the Second International Poliomyelitis Conference as an official guest. The reception line told the whole story. Basil O'Connor refused to shake her hand. Tom Rivers, one of America's top virologists, took it instead. He later admitted it was out of pity, as he could see the poor old soul was damn near dead. In September 1952, she made her final journey across the Pacific Ocean to Australia, never to return to her beloved America. Her end was peaceful, almost anticlimactic. No state funeral, no official honours, no final vindication. Just a humble guard of honour from local children for a woman who had risen from obscurity to become, for a brief time, one of the most famous women in the world. Should we remember Elizabeth Kenny? She didn't cure polio. She exaggerated, fabricated, and sometimes outright lied. Her critics were right about that. But she also challenged cruel, immobilizing treatments. She insisted on compassion, on movement, on hope. And in doing so, she made a difference in thousands of children's lives. So why is she all but forgotten outside her adopted home of Minneapolis? Some say she was forgotten because polio shifted from being a story about patient care to a story of the triumph of science over polio. Others say she made more political opponents than political allies during her career. Basil O'Connor made sure she was missing from the Polio Hall of Fame in Warm Springs, Georgia. And the Australian Medical Association appointed her most vocal critic to write her obituary. She was damned with faint praise. That's an awful lot of forgetting. So I come back to the question, should we remember Elizabeth Kenny? I say yes, but not for the usual reasons. Certainly not for the legend she created, appealing as it may be, and not simply for her contribution to the treatment of polio, substantial as that may be. I believe she should be remembered because she is the embodiment of the age-old truth that even deeply flawed people are capable of great achievements. She was flawed, she was fearless, and I think she was unforgettable. As the Nobel Prize-winning Australian scientist Sir Frank Macfarlane Burnet once said, "If a child of mine got polio, I'd call for Sister Kenny."